Well, hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to the very first recap edition of These Are the Voyages. I'm the captain. I'm Captain Chase McKinney, and I'm joined by the noble and most excellent good sir, Lieutenant Commander Eric. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing peachy keen and A-OK. So, Eric, we're going to be talking about Picard today, aren't we?
We are. Brand new episode of a brand new show. Lots of excitement going on here, and I'm really excited to do this.
Absolutely. Yeah, so for anyone that's been living under a rock the last, year and a half, Patrick Stewart is and has returned to his Next Generation role of Captain Jean-Luc Picard in a brand new CBS All Access web series, basically, as I guess what they're calling it these days, just a web series, in the show called Star Trek Picard, and it just premiered in the U.S. on Thursday, January 23rd, and we know there's going to be 10 episodes, and this first episode was called Remembrance, and anyway,
That's a pretty appropriate title, I think. Remembrance.
Yes.
If you watch this episode, that's a really appropriate title.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. I think it was a very appropriate title. I wasn't too sure what to expect because, the title kind of threw me off, and I felt kind of old, reading that title.
Well, I mean, the show is 30 years old, isn't it?
Yeah, it premiered 1987, so we're talking 32 years. That's how old I am.
Yeah, that's how old we are.
Yeah. We are old people. Kind of. Anyway.
It's only about how old you feel, right?
Yeah, that's what they say.
That's what a lot of people say.
That's what they say, yeah. So, we've talked about this before on the main show, and we're still going to do main shows. We're still going to do TRTV news and everything. This is going to be the first of a series of, recap and engaging with the show and the material. And this has taken me back, and maybe even Eric back, to our old days in high school and college whenever we would talk about shows that we were watching at the time. So, anyway, here we are again, doing it all over again, but instead of instant messenger, we have microphones and webcams.
Yeah, that was the genesis for this show, right? We would watch 24, and then as soon as the episode would be over, we'd go to AIM.
Yep. Right?
Those youngins who don't know what AIM is, and we'd just talk back and forth about the episode every week.
Mm-hmm.
And the technology's gotten a lot better, and we can actually talk to each other instead of rapid text.
Yeah, basically. So I think we've definitely talked about that at least 2 or 3 times at different points in the episodes that we've recorded together. So anyways, let's just jump right into this and just start talking about Star Trek Picard. So, I don't even know where to begin with this other than I just really enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it too. I don't think I enjoyed it as much as some of the things that I've been reading online. If you go to IMDb, there's a lot of 10-star reviews for this episode, which I think this episode is good. I enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed it, but I would give it probably a solid 7.5.
Okay. So you'd give it about a 7.5, and for me, I'm probably going to give it a little bit of a higher rating. I'm probably going to give it like a 9.25.
Oh wow, that's high.
So let me just kind of talk about let me just go ahead and get some of my bad out of the way with this show. So the thing that I wasn't too crazy about was the Borg cube. So and this is just kind of nitpicky. The Borg cube that we see in the final shot, so I know we're just at the beginning, but the final shot of the Borg cube, for some reason, it just looked really small to me. It didn't look as large as it normally does, and I don't know if it was just the angle of the shot or whatnot, but I guess that was just the only thing that I wasn't too crazy about.
No, I think you're probably right that it looks small when you see the ships fly out of it at the end. They don't look terribly much smaller than the cube. And we've seen the Borg cube up against other ships like the Enterprise D, and it just dwarfs it. But one thing that we know, the Romulans tend to build big ships. Like the main Romulan ship, the D-Daredex class, the thing with the big head and then the empty space between the wings, that ship is huge, right? Whenever we saw it compared to the Enterprise,
yes,
it was just enormous. So maybe the Romulan ships are just big.
Maybe, and then whatever. I wish I knew like the class of starship or whatever it was that was flying into the hangar bay, but I mean that looked kind of small-ish too.
It looked transporty.
Yeah, like a shuttle pod type of thing for the Romulans or whoever it belonged to, right? I mean, because we had Harry Treadaway's character, I think, is what we're led to believe is the one that's flying that and kind of docking that shuttle pod or that ship inside the Borg cube at the very end.
Yeah, that looks about right.
So, anyway, that was one of the things. How about you with like your 7.5?
My main issue with this episode is the pacing. I think it was incredibly fast-paced. And I know they wanted to get this whole thing out there in 45 minutes to make it seem like a normal episode. But this episode, you could have taken this same story and easily expanded it to 55 or 60 or 70 minutes, right? And just let it take its time and breathe and unfold at a more natural pace. I just really thought everything just happened so fast.
Okay. And see, for me, there were, and this is interesting because there were times that I thought this was going slow, especially like at the beginning, like with all the vineyard stuff and trying to get Picard to just like move around and do whatever it is he was going to do. So, but that's okay.
I guess when I say the pacing was too fast, like we were teased in the trailers, I'll say, about, the mysterious Dodge, and there's going to be mysterious. But in the end, there really was no mystery because he figured everything out incredibly fast. That's kind of what I mean with the pacing issues.
Okay.
It took Picard almost no time to figure out who she was and where she came from.
Sure. So,
and I just kind of wish they had let that, expanded on that, and it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Boom, 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 boom.
I get what you're saying with that. So let's talk for a second. Let's kind of reverse this because we're kind of at the end of the episode for right now. Let's kind of go to the beginning. Okay. So, and by the beginning, I mean like 10 minutes in when we get the title sequence and the intro music. What'd you think of that title and that intro music that we were hearing and seeing?
It was kind of like a non-entity for me. Just like kind of like Discovery's intro and title is kind of boring and not memorable. To me, this was not interesting to me.
Okay.
It's better than Deep Space Nine's intro, which is god awful, right? But it's not the Next Generations, it's not Voyager's, and it's not I don't think it's going to be controversial like Enterprise's was. I think we're just this is the title music.
You never know. There could be lyrics that drop in like episode 3 or 4 for all we know. With maybe a little banjo or something.
We're going to country bumpkin it up in season 2.
Yeah, add a little bit of fiddle action going on instead of a cello.
I don't know. What did you think of this title music? I know music is an important thing for you as it relates to Star Trek. That's one of the big reasons why you like First Contact, is because its music is fantastic. So what did you think of this?
So I really enjoyed the music, and it had that classic feel to it, and you know that, or at least I know that that Picard is a very classic and classy individual. So it had that I think the depth and the vibe of Picard was kind of captured in, you know, the first few bars that we're hearing of the intro music, and then once we hit the cello around like bar, I don't know, 7, 8, or 9 maybe. I don't know what the sheet music even looks like, but when the cello happened, I was like, okay, I like this. And then seeing the graphics behind it, and for anyone that's watched Discovery and paid some attention to their intro stuff, like for the season, there are some Easter eggs that we'll see in the intro that's going to be connected in some way to what we're going to experience in the season. So I say that to say that hearing and experiencing the music, and coupled with like the neuro whatever, the positronic cells or whatever stuff, you see that, and you know, once you watch it, I've watched Picard 3 times, so you know, the first time, like, okay, what is this stuff? But then, like, I noticed, like, after watching it, like, oh, that's kind of important, which makes me wonder about some things even more moving forward. So, to answer your question, I really liked it, and I thought that it set the tone for the show. I mean, that's kind of what the music's supposed to do. There's supposed to be some kind of anticipation, and the music behind it is supposed to maybe create the type of emotional preparation that you need for this adventure that you're going on. So the fact that it's more serious and subdued, I thought they did a good job of that, especially with what we see with Picard and where he's going and what he's going to be doing just in this first episode. You know, with shaking some of the rust off, you can very much see that him waking up and going about his day-to-day existence now. So, and then the little flourish at the very end with the next gen little flute action was awesome. I love that.
That was really in-depth into some musical theory there, talking about the bars and everything, and I know nothing about music. But I would agree, I like the somber tone of it. Mm-hmm. I do think that's fitting, but especially when you contrast it to the Next Generation music, which is all up-tempo.
Right.
And this is reflective of a different time and a different person, really. So I like that, but in the end, I don't think this is going to be memorable like the Next Generation's theme music is.
Sure.
Or Voyager's theme music, for that matter.
So you mentioned, you joke about the whole music theory thing, or you pointed that out and stuff. And, you know, the thing about that, like, and that's the one thing I listen to is just, I mainly listen to, like, orchestral arrangements, you know, scores and things like that. I don't really listen to much in the way of vocal singing anymore, so just call me old and an old codger for it. But that's just me. So, like, I'll pay attention. I'll pay attention to, like for anyone that's played, like, Uncharted, for example, on PlayStation, or Tomb Raider, you know, any of the Tomb Raider games, like original all the way up to the more recent reimagining ones, just any video game, any movie score, TV score, I'm paying attention to it, and I'm trying to take notice of what kind of emotional tone are they trying to convey. What is the arranger trying to convey when he or she is writing this stuff and having like, you know, like a mellophone, you know, blast a note, compared to, you know, using a stringed instrument or a woodwind instrument or a percussion instrument. And, you know, I'm thinking of the choices that they're making, and that's me being a music nerd in that regard. But, you know, why would they choose an oboe instead of a clarinet, or why would they choose a cello instead of a violin, and the depth of a note that you can get with those instruments. So, anyway, I could talk about this for a while, but I won't.
That was intense. I guess I don't pay that much attention to the music. I thought I did, but after hearing that, wow.
Sorry, Eric.
Wow, making me out to be the amateur here.
You know, I did take music theory at Mott Community College, so, you know, I'm learned real good.
Hey, I'm a math guy, and music is all math, isn't it?
So they say. Anyway, well, regardless, we have.
So talk to me about this intro for a sec while we're on the intro.
Sure.
Did you like the placement of it in regards to where it came in the episode? Because I almost thought it came too late. Mm-hmm. I would have liked to see the intro come before the introduction of Daj. Right? That whole scene with Daj in her apartment. Mm-hmm. Right? The intro happens right after that. I would have preferred that the intro came right before that scene, right? Where we just see Picard's dream with Data, and then he wakes up, looks over the vineyard, and he says something like, "Oh, all right," or something, and then cut to the intro. What did you think about the placement of it?
I can agree with that maybe the title card and everything came a little late. I think that, if we would have had it maybe around there, or maybe around there. I'm starting to get things a little out of place
because it was seven or 8 minutes into the episode, which is very long time.
Okay, hold on, let's back up for a second. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but the arrangement of this was where we open up and we're on the old Enterprise D, the 1701D. Picard and Data are playing poker together, and when they're playing poker, they're kind of joking and joking around, having a good time together. Picard says, "I know you have a tell," and then he says he's all in. 5 queens are shown. 5 Queen of Hearts.
5 Queen of Hearts.
Queen of Hearts, yes, are shown. And then he's confused because then they're like, "We're not supposed to be at Mars," and then Mars is exploding. Data gives like a weird, creepy look.
Creepy look at him,
creepy as heck, man. And then he wakes up, number 1 licking his face, number 1 being his pet dog, not Riker.
Yeah, not Riker.
And from there, he's kind of strolling around, walking the vineyard, and...
No, but then he just gets up and opens his doors and looks out the window.
Is that when it cuts to Daj?
And then, we just see he opens his window, he looks out on the vineyard, and then it shows a close-up of his face, and he says something like, "All right," or "Okay." And then it cuts to the skyline in Boston.
Okay, yeah.
With the whole Daj apartment sequence.
So with that, I could get on board with, even if we didn't see Picard wake up, if like he's freaking out, and then it like just kind of fades to black or fades to white or something, and then like it fades into the title sequence, that could be okay. But I mean, the way it's done is the way it's done, and that's totally fine. And then we meet Daj. So let's talk about Daj. So she's hanging out with her boyfriend that can do some like weird funky things with his eyes because he's an alien. And we were talking...
An alien, I don't think we've ever seen that alien race before, have we?
Not that I know of. I don't even think it showed up on JJ Trek.
Yeah. I don't know who that is.
But he's trying to order like a vanilla shake or a vanilla frappuccino. I'm wondering if it was like the Chick-fil-A recipe or what it was.
I don't know. I've never been to a Chick-fil-A in my life. I just thought it was funny. It's not like something that I care to do, but like, I just thought it was funny how like they're sitting there having a nice moment, drinking wine, and then he goes to the replicator and it's like, "Your replicator is seriously lacking on recipes here." Right. It's just funny. It's a funny scene to me. I like it.
Which is crazy because I guess like starships get like all the recipes and apartments don't.
Well, I think it's all about what you program into your replicator.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, maybe she just deleted everything else because she didn't like anything else, and that's all she wanted was her vanilla frappuccino thing. Whatever it was, yeah.
Oh, man. Okay.
But then, what happens? We get some Jason Bourne type sequence, right?
Yes.
Where we have no memory of what we are, and then boom, all of a sudden we're a fighting machine. Yep. What'd you think of that? Very Jason Bourne-like, right?
Yeah, I was like, wait, activated? Like, we got like some like Manchurian Candidate, like super secret spy thing going on, like hasn't been activated. What is this nonsense?
Yeah, very Manchurian Candidate. That's a good analogy right there, I think.
But like, yeah, she just mops him with the floor, man. Like, I mean, mops the floor with him. There we go. Words are hard sometimes.
Yeah, there were 3 of them that she just like takes out.
Yeah, and then she's wearing some kind of like holographic sunglasses or eyepieces or something.
I think those are. I thought those were supposed to be some type of like restraint device.
Maybe.
I don't know why they would put them on her if it wasn't meant to be like some kind of restraint.
Mm-hmm. So the thing that I'm wondering about that particular scene, and maybe we'll find out more because we know we're only in episode 1 right now, and I am looking forward to the future episodes. I don't want to have that be a mystery. I am legitimately looking forward to it.
Oh, I'm looking forward to them as well, very much so.
I'm just wondering, how in the world did Daj, with a bag over her head, use the Force? And you like that? Huh?
That's kind of what it looked like, wasn't it?
Reach out. Reach out. God almighty.
Well, wow.
Yeah, the Force will be with you. Always.
Yeah, the Force was with her.
Yeah, live long and prosper. All other stuff.
Until it wasn't, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, it was kind of cool. With her being able to do that, but it was also kind of odd. Like, okay, I want there to be some mystery with this character because I don't want to know everything all at once. And I think that's fair with any character. Don't dump all the info, all the lore on a character on me all at once.
And I guess that's kind of what I was saying with the pacing issue, is that we learned everything about Daj in the span of 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was just too much.
Which I think it's going to be interesting to see how it plays with her sister. You have a twin sister. More Star Wars for you.
Yes, lots of Star Wars in this, and I think if we get to some closing remarks, when we do, there's probably a little bit of Star Wars I can throw in here too. Okay. So I'll tease that for you.
Ooh, you're such a tease. Oh my gosh. All right, moving on. So do you just want to like talk about Daj here, or do you want to keep going in order of the episode? Yeah, let's go ahead and camp out on Daj, and maybe we can just like talk about like the rest of her story that we for this episode, since we're on her. So we kind of missed. Was there a moment where you thought Daj was lol? 100%. 100%. Yeah, I totally thought that's what was going to happen. Yeah, and I was thinking, even before the show aired, I'm like, I'm wondering if they cast her because she strikes some resemblance with Lal. I was wondering that. And we find out, and I think it's probably no secret by now that this is not a spoiler-free episode. No, spoilers abound here. Yeah, there's like spoilers upon spoilers upon spoilers. So, I mean, it sucks to be you if you haven't watched it yet. Yeah, don't listen to this episode if you haven't seen episode 1 of Picard. Yeah, we're 20 some odd minutes in, and we're just now making that announcement. All right, so but maybe you should in post you should put like a spoiler recap. I can do that. Yeah. Like, this is not spoiler free. Okay, if you didn't hear it at the beginning, you've now heard it 20 some odd minutes in. That this is not spoiler free. So there you go. Just having a good old time, folks. Anyway, so I think there was, before we talk about Daj, I think there was one perhaps important thing to maybe talk about before with Picard, before we really get into Daj. So Picard is he's in retirement. He's a retired admiral. We find out that it's been 14 years since he retired from Starfleet, and he hasn't really spoken to anyone except for his Romulan aides or whatever they are.
His housekeeper and his butler, right?
Basically, yeah. His new Boothby and Alfred, I guess. Anyway.
Yeah.
So there's an interview that's scheduled with Picard, and there's a promise that there's not going to be any mention of certain bits. And one thing that I've noticed, and I don't know if you've noticed this as well, Eric, but when it comes to someone that's looking in the mirror a lot more frequently, they're the ones that are typically going to be the aggressor, that are going to try and get under the person's skin. So I think we've seen that in Discovery for one. I think we've seen that in other iterations of Star Trek to a certain extent. And we see this news reporter we flat out see her in some kind of holographic mirror or screen or something.
Yeah, doing her makeup or whatever.
Yeah, choosing her favorite, cover photo background. I don't know, whatever she's doing. And she gets
getting her Snapchat filter right.
That's right. Yeah, I didn't see the pooch, the puppy face with the tongue or anything, which was probably good. But
yeah, that's probably good. Yeah,
it's probably good. You're on the news and everything. You don't want that. But so she gets a rise out of Picard, and this is being televised everywhere. And by everywhere, I mean Boston, where Daj is.
Yeah. Well, didn't he say let's welcome 1 million people into your study?
Yeah. Welcome the galaxy into your study.
Oh, the galaxy. She said the galaxy, yeah.
But you really see some Captain Picard just jump out. And that was one thing I was concerned about, with his conviction. Were we going to still get, some of the same convictions with Picard? And then I saw him in how he spoke about the situation. He didn't just concur Romulan lives, he said lives. And he didn't just say something. He always brought it back to the moral good, the moral right, and then not wanting to just stand by, sit by, whatever, while all this stuff happens that Starfleet wasn't willing to do. So his convictions and his moral compass are still there from when I believe we left him last in Nemesis. So, but it was that exchange that really precipitated Daj appearing to Picard in earnest, because she had the flash in her little ninja Manchurian candidate Jason Bourne scene,
and then reaching out with the Force, right?
Yeah, the Force will be with you always. Anyway,
yeah, and then she was walking the streets and she saw she saw this news broadcast, and that's what really brought her to Picard.
Right, and she just the ticker, the name bar, whatever, said Chateau Picard, France, I think is what it said. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that kind of narrows it down, where to go. Maybe he's not in Boston.
Yeah, maybe he's not in Boston. But, I think you're right. I have a lot of issues with that news scene. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that I really like is that Picard was always known for being the moral compass and the fiery speech giver. And while he didn't give a big speech here, I really did think that showed that this is still the character that we all knew and loved. He's just a little bit older, but he's still going to be the guy that we want to associate with, who has this great moral compass.
Mm-hmm. So, fun Easter egg. I don't know if you noticed it in any of your viewings. You said that you've seen it twice?
I've seen it twice, yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if you noticed this in your second viewing, or even in your first, but the room that they're in, right? If you can just barely see it, or it's there, or anyways. But in a scene prior to what I'm about to say, you can see the painting hanging up already before it's actually revealed.
No, I actually did not notice that.
Yeah. So fun little Easter egg, I guess, to look for on subsequent viewings for anyone that might have not have noticed it the second or third time.
Don't you think though it's a little fortunate, I guess is the word I'll use, that he had that exact painting hanging up in his study. Like, of all the paintings that Data did, this is the one that's hanging up on his study 30 years later.
Yeah.
That's a little fortunate, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. So, let's keep on trucking with Daj. I know we kind of took like a little time out there for a second. So let's talk about Daj now in earnest. So she appears to Picard. I need your help. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope. Type of thing. More Star Wars for you.
Yep, that's what it reminded me of.
Guys, I really did like this episode. I promise. I'm not.
No, I did too. I liked it.
So she runs away in the middle of the night. Here, Earl Grey always helps. I'm like, yes, it does. I'm drinking it right now as we're talking about it. And the next day...
But it has to be decaf Earl Grey this time. Decaf.
Tea Earl Grey. Decaf. No, thank you. No, I'm going to stick with my tea Earl Grey hot, which we know is regular. So he ends up going to Starfleet Archives, or I think it was just called Starfleet Archives.
Yeah, and then the individual thing is called the Quantum Archive.
Mm-hmm. And it's like his own secret stash of toys, basically.
His own secret nostalgia trove.
Yes.
I mean, that scene right there is pure fan service nostalgia.
I loved the crap out of it.
We see the Stargazer, we see the Captain's Yacht, Batleth, the Captain Picard Day banner. Just pure fan service nostalgia.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I love the crap.
And I don't have a problem with that. That's nothing wrong with that at all.
So when we
don't think that's what I'm saying.
When we got to that room, were you looking for the flute?
I was looking. Once I saw all the other stuff, I was absolutely looking for the flute.
Mm-hmm.
But my guess is that he probably has the flute somewhere in his house, not in storage.
I would hope so, because like that was a deeply personal artifact for him.
Well, I mean, he kept the flute in his ready room on board the Enterprise, not in his quarters.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that tells you all you need to know about how important that was to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but I was definitely looking for it. I was like, where is it? Where is it?
Where's the flute? Guys, where's the flute? So we see the Stargazer little model. We see, I saw the Enterprise E model off, kind of tucked away. If you blinked, you'd miss it, basically.
Yeah, but then when he was actually looking at the painting in the background, there was the Enterprise D on the wall.
Yep. So we get a little nugget, and you mentioned this just a moment ago, Eric, that this painting was created by Lieutenant Commander Data circa 2369. So for anyone wondering when that might be, did you ever look this up, Eric, when 2369 was?
Well, the show started in the season 1 finale. Data says this is 2364. So we're looking at season 5 of The Next Generation.
So I was looking it up. 2369. A majority of the episodes are mainly in season 6, but season 5, 6-ish, maybe even early 7-ish is kind of like the time frame that we're looking at for when this painting was potentially created.
Mm-hmm.
And that was also the time that we were being introduced to Deep Space Nine. We've talked about Deep Space Nine a lot, and so it's going to be interesting to. It could have been like one of those off-screen things. I mean, it had to have been, but just like looking back at season 6 storylines of anything in particular that would have been maybe important or that would have maybe driven Data to create this piece of art.
Well, I know we just mentioned Lal, and that episode where he creates Lal was in season 3.
Right.
So, called The Offspring. So, I'm thinking back, end of season 5, beginning of season 6. Does anything jump out at me that going on with Data?
I mean, what was it?
Honestly, like, I know the Times Arrow episode, where is the end of season 5, beginning of season 6. nothing from that would strike me why Data would maybe go make a painting of this. I mean, we get, at the beginning of season 6, we get that Relics episode where Scotty comes back.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing really jumps out at me that would be happening with Data to make him draw that painting at that moment in time. Right. What about you?
Not really. I mean, Time's Arrow, I know it's not everyone's favorite, but that is like probably one of the two-parters that I watched the most.
No, Time's Arrow is definitely an enjoyable episode. It's a lot of fun.
I love Time's Arrow. I love the heck out of it. And that's really the main one that sticks out. I mean, we kind of have... I mean, Descent isn't even until end of season 6. That's the season 6 finale. So, I mean, there are memorable Data episodes and Data moments in 5 and 6, but nothing, like you're saying, nothing's really jumping out at the moment. So, anyway, getting back to Daj and actually talking about Daj. So, we find out this painting has a title that was created circa 2369, whenever the heck that falls. And Picard asks this holographic index, the emergency index hologram, I guess, the EIH or whatever it's called, I don't know. And she says that it's called Daughter, and that it was created by Lieutenant Commander Data, which kind of, gets Picard thinking even more about, wait a tick, what's going on, dude? And it evolves into Picard eventually talking with Daj, because Daj finds him using her super duper force powers, and and being able to get to him quickly. That we think that you might be, part android, part human somehow. Which I said it, didn't I? I said I had one theory like that but Bruce Maddox was going to try and do something with humans and positronic brains, or Borgs and positronic brains.
Yeah, wow. Like, we just did our last episode, and we did Best of Picard, and we talked about the essential episodes, and we both had Measure of a Man in our essential episodes. And we both knew that it was going to be important, but damn, I did not realize they were going to drop that episode on us right away. God, I mean, like... I would say The Measure of a Man so far is the most essential episode.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because they just dropped everything from that episode right on us.
Yep.
Man.
Yeah.
And you're totally right. You did say that, and I kind of concurred that, Commander Maddox wanted to basically reverse engineer Data, and we said, well, maybe he reached the point where he succeeded.
Mm-hmm. And as a result of watching this show, it's this first episode, it's gotten me to really think about what, like, some of the end episodes or near the end episodes could look like for this season. So we'll talk about some of the tech here in just a little bit, but we think we've been led to believe this entire time that Daj is one of the central characters or principal actors or characters of the show. And after going to the museum and getting winded going up some stairs and stuff, she goes boom. Yeah,
like we were told, like, Issa Briones. I don't know if that's how you pronounce
Issa
it. That's
Briones.
how I pronounce that. Okay, Briones.
Yep.
She was one of the principal actors, and she was listed as being in 8 of the 10 episodes. So we were led to believe that Daj would be incredibly important. So when Daj blows up there, you're like, wait, what?
Back the truck up. What's just happening?
Wait, what just happened? So that was a big surprise, right? But that whole scene on the roof, like, I don't like that scene on the roof. The fight choreography there, I think, is really bad. I think the editing is not very good. And I realize, not every fight scene and all the fight choreography can't be, Daredevil quality, right? Daredevil on Netflix, which is just amazing fight choreography. Not everything can be that high level, but the editing there, the the fight choreography when like she like jumps in the air and like flies up the stairs almost, like again using the force almost. I just did not like that. What do you think?
I think the only thing that I didn't like about that sequence, or like, you know, that like those one or two scenes or whatever it was I understand that Picard is literally 90 years old in this because he was born in 2309, I'm pretty sure. So he's 90 because this is 2399. So I know that he's old and that Patrick Stewart is 79 or 80 or something like that. So he's not going to have the same pep and get up and go as he did, you know, in the movies and TV show. But you just see how frail he is, and that kind of just, I didn't like that. You know, like getting winded.
Yeah, he can't even walk upstairs, right?
Yeah, that I didn't like that, and you know, Dodge saying, "Get down, hide," and he's like ducking below like a bench
or something.
Yeah. But I mean, it at the same time it makes sense for his character because his character's 90. You know, what 90-year-olds are really going to be running upstairs and stuff like that? They're not going to have the same virility as they would.
You think of a 90-year-old from today, you've got to think 90-year-olds, right, 400 years in the future.
Yeah. Which is, yeah, that's...
With all the advances in medical technology that we have,
yeah,
that we think we might have.
Yeah, and what was it? Bones, he shows up on the very first episode, the pilot episode of TNG, and he's like, what, 130, 140 something years old?
Yeah, Data says his exact age, right,
yeah,
in that scene. I forget exactly how old he was, but something like 130.
Yeah. So that was like the only thing I didn't like, and then I was like, whoa, we're doing some big jumping. That's a lot of jumping right there.
It was a forced jump.
Yeah, man. And the when the one Romulan biker dude fell off the staircase and he was like beamed out, I was like, that totally takes me back to, gosh, which one was that? Was that 2009 Star Trek with or was that Beyond with them falling and beaming? Oh no, it was 2009 Star Trek where Scotty is trying to beam. I think it was Kirk and Sulu when they were falling off that little drilling platform or whatever.
Right.
That totally that scene. It looked like it was like a shot for shot type of thing, with like the falling and the beaming and stuff. But yeah.
Did you expect those bad guys in hoods to be Romulans there?
No.
Or did that surprised you?
That totally surprised me. I expected it to be synths. I expected it to be like those white lurch-looking androids that we were seeing in the trailers. That's who I thought these folks were the entire time.
I actually did expect them to be Romulans because there's a scene where they break into Dodge's apartment at the beginning and they're speaking in an alien language, and then one of them says, "Speak English."
Well, okay, let me... To be fair, yes. I knew that the black, dressed folks were Romulan, I guess, in the beginning, based on hearing that, but I also kind of had this thought, like, okay, we know that the Romulans have taken over a Borg cube somehow, and we know that there's synthetics that are playing a part and that they're potentially on this Borg cube, so I thought there was like some kind of alliance and they all wore the same clothing. So that's kind of... I should have clarified that. I'm sorry about that, Eric. So I thought that attack that happened there in San Francisco was synths dressed in black biker gear.
Okay, that's fair enough. I understand what you're saying. And it makes sense that there might be some alliance between the Romulans and the synths. Sure.
Right. So then following that, like, Picard gets, like, excited, and he still goes to the Daystrom Institute, which I was very excited to finally see the Daystrom Institute after hearing about it forever, 30-something years.
Yeah, we heard about it forever, but we also saw Dr. Daystrom in the original series episode, right? The Ultimate Computer.
Yes. But we never saw where the Daystrom Institute was or anything like that. And then when I heard Okinawa, I was like, what? Okay.
Well, I mean, it's right across the ocean from Starfleet Academy.
Yeah, why not?
Starfleet headquarters,
yeah.
Just right across the ocean. Quick little hop.
It's fine.
I mean, in the 24th century, just hopping the Pacific Ocean can't be a big deal. right?
Yeah. And so we saw Allison. We met Allison Pill's character, Dr. Girardi. I think is how you pronounce it. Girardi.
Yeah, Dr. Agnes Girardi.
Girardi. There we go. And I have, maybe I don't know if I should say it now or later. I'll say it now. Why not? We're talking about her. I'm half wondering if she's a synth.
Huh. I never would have thought that. Tell me, why do you think this? What's your headspace on this one?
So some of her mannerisms, how she's reacting to some things with Picard, how she's speaking with Picard, the way she's talking about the synths and Bruce Maddox and being recruited out of Starfleet and stuff like that. Just like little idiosyncrasies that the actor did is getting me to think maybe she is a synth. Maybe there are more synths that are like Daj, which we know there are, but like beyond Daj. So that's kind of where I'm hanging out at with her. And it'd be interesting for her to not even have an awareness, much like, what was it? Data's mom, Julian, was it Tainer?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I forget her name. But yeah, when Data's mom, essentially.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, if it happens, it happens. And I can say that, yeah, I called it from the beginning.
Yeah, I didn't. That thought never even crossed my mind. So that'll be an interesting thing to think about, to watch for as we move forward, just to watch her mannerisms and some of the things that she does. Mm-hmm. Huh. I'm gonna keep an eye out on that.
There we go. But we saw B4.
Okay, so let
go ahead.
Yeah, we did see B4. Let's talk about this whole sequence with Picard and Dr. Girardi at the Daystrom Institute.
Okay.
I see. This is one of the reasons. This scene in particular is one of the reasons why the episode I gave it a 7.5. This is some, in my opinion, clunky dialogue and clunky exposition, and I feel like there has to be a better way to get this information out there to us as an audience, rather than just real clunky dialogue and exposition. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, parts of it were, sure, and I really hope we get to see Bruce Maddox at some point.
I really do too. Like, just for like one clip, that's kind of like one of the thoughts that I have moving forward is he'll show up somewhere.
I've been like scouring IMDb, Wikipedia.
Oh no, they're gonna hide that from us totally. They're not gonna let that leak if that's what ends up happening.
If they can keep that like on lockdown, I'll be like super impressed, like hardcore impressed.
Yeah, like somebody on the crew, some low level, like boom mic operator or somebody sees him on set and like leaks it.
Yeah. But one of the things that I thought whenever this happens, like, oh, of course we can have, computer bits that can help something grow back. Of course we can. And, if they do that, if they can like really pull that off, I mean, they kind of show that they did with Daj and whatnot, but I just thought that was a little convenient, but I like it. I mean, I can be okay with it, but some of the dialogue was a little clunky, and I think this was the part of the show where like it just went like from like impulse to like warp 5 for me in terms of like one scene to the next, because it's like, okay, she just died, and now it's like, okay, we gotta do Daystrom, we gotta do this before the episode ends.
And that was what I meant early on when I said that the pacing, it just, everything just happened so quickly. Mm-hmm. Especially right once Picard figures out who Daj is.
See, I would have thought that the episode would have ended like with her going boom and Picard being blown away, and then that being it, like wondering what the heck's going to happen next, and have to wait a week to find out what's going to happen next, instead of he's awake.
I think that would have been a better ending than what we got.
But that would have been like
I really do think that this episode here needed to be like longer or shorter. Like, I don't quite think it was the right length. And I know people say, well, what do you mean shorter? It was 44 minutes. That's how long an episode is. But, and we're talking about Star Wars more, The Mandalorian. I don't know if you've seen that, if anybody out there listening has seen that, but all of those episodes are like 35 minutes.
Yeah, and people are like, come on, man. 10 minutes more. Give us 10 minutes more. No. If we do 10 minutes more, we're probably going to, like, shoot ourselves in the foot. So Mandalorian did a good job. And I watched all, I think it was 8, 9, 10 chapters, whatever it was, for The Mandalorian. That was great. Are we turning into a Star Wars podcast, Eric? Because I'm really concerned.
No, we're not. We were crossing our streams a little bit. But,
don't cross the streams, Eric.
But we're definitely not turning into a Star Wars podcast.
Okay, thank God. I was worried for a second.
I am definitely not qualified to be on a Star Wars podcast.
Yeah, me either. I like green lightsabers.
I mean, I watched it, and I can certainly enjoy it and talk about it, but nowhere near as in-depth as I can in Star Trek.
Okay. So, yeah, so I think we've gotten, like, that pacing part, like, once we get to Daystrom forward, you know. But here's the thing that that I liked that is getting me to... I have another theory for how something might play out towards the end of this season. So we know that Data has been this Pinocchio. He's always endeavoring to be more human and wanting to be among humans and things like that. And the closest that he ever really came, kind of, was in First Contact when he was being given skin and he had his emotion chip. I would say that was probably the closest he's come, maybe. And with this, in this particular scene with Allison Pill, Dr. Girardi, we're told that Bruce Maddox and her, I believe it was the two, had come up with this idea or this way of kind of splicing together like something positronic and organic, and it basically being able to recreate an entire set of memories, if I'm not mistaken, and that it would just basically go from there. Okay, would you agree with that?
That is exactly what I'm thinking.
Okay,
right?
So here's my theory. Okay, we'll talk about Dodge and like the implications with Dodge and stuff here in a second. But here's my theory. So my other theory is that, okay, if we can get a little bit of data, however small it is, however tiny of a cell it is, I think that Brent Spiner, Old Man Spiner, is going to be in this show at the end as a human data. Human, air quotes, data.
Huh, that's interesting. I could definitely see that happening. That wouldn't be the way I would take the story. That wouldn't exactly necessarily be, for me, the best thing that they could do, but I think that that's an interesting idea that I could definitely see happening, sure.
Okay.
Like, I honestly, I think Brent Spiner was used perfectly in this episode.
Yes.
Right? And Data. I like the way that it was just two small clips, right? It's not completely just trying to be, hey, we're going to bring back the whole Next Generation crew and they're going to play major roles. This is really supposed to be just about Picard, and we get Data in here just briefly and used in two perfect clips. I think that was one of the best things this episode did.
Yes, absolutely. And so yeah, we had the two clips. We already talked about one. We talked about him being at the beginning with the Enterprise playing poker, and then we had the second one with him being at the vineyard painting the portrait that we had also talked about relating to Dodge. Now, here's the thing, that we're still at the Daystrom Institute, and it's like this big reveal, like, wait a second, these synths were made in pairs. And Picard says, twins? Yes, twins. And then we are shown. We go to this Borg cube. We see this cute little.
But we don't know it's a Borg cube right away.
That's true. Fair enough. We go to this outer space scene.
It's called the Romulan Reclamation Site.
Yes.
So they're trying to reclaim territory that was theirs.
And we see Harry Treadaway's character come in on his little whatever he's flying, and we see another Dodge. Dun dun dun. Soji. Dr. Soji Asher, I believe is her name.
Yeah. Dr. Soji Asha?
Something like that.
Asher.
I think it was.
I thought it was Asha.
It's Ash something. How about that?
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Dr. Soji.
Yeah.
And
Dr. Soji is better anyway.
So
let's go with that.
So she is. It sounds like she's some kind of like therapist, like a psychologist or a counselor or something.
That's what it sounds like.
It's what it sounds like.
Based on how he says, I know you spend all day fixing broken people and listening to their stories, and you don't want to hear more when you get off work.
Mm-hmm. And she kind of flirts with him a little bit.
Yeah, and from the previews, it looks like they're going to start some kind of romantic relationship.
Yeah.
But he to me totally seems like a Tal Shiar agent who's going undercover here.
Right.
Did you get that vibe?
Yes. And for anyone that has not read the Countdown comics, let me just kind of connect something for you real quick. So the Tal Shiar are very much involved in the lead up to this show, and in fact the two Romulans that are living at Chateau Picard with Jean-Luc are actually in I think they're in the first two issues of the Countdown comic. They were stationed at this planet where Picard's at, and they fell in love. And that's one thing you're not supposed to do when you're on an assignment with a Tal Shiar, is you keep your emotions in check. You don't do any of that stuff. And they were like in hiding undercover for so long that they just ended up developing, romantic feelings for one another, and that they wanted off. They wanted to escape this thing that was about to happen to this planet. So, they reach out to Picard for in the comic. So there's that connection between the Countdown comic, and this episode. So just wanted to draw that in case anyone that was wondering, like, why are there Romulans at Chateau Picard? I know we're jumping all over the time stream right now, but I thought that was worth mentioning since we just mentioned the Tal Shiar at the Romulan site. So,
like, I think like this Countdown, that I've never read a comic book in my life, it's supposed to serve as some kind of companion piece. But I almost think that I do think that the show needs to give you all of the information that you need to know on its own. I don't feel like you should have to go to these extra things to figure out the information. I feel like the show needs to tell you everything that you need to know.
Yeah. Well, and with this, we're basically at the end of the episode. There's some bits that we probably didn't talk about, and that's okay. If you've watched it, great. You'll understand what we're talking about. If you haven't watched it, what are you doing? Go watch it. We'd love to hear your thoughts, but before we wrap things up, I know, Eric, that you were talking about something earlier. You had teased it. I hope you didn't forget what it was.
I did not.
Okay, so you little tease. Let's hear what you got.
Well, I just this is going into all my closing remarks for this episode, which I said I gave it a 7.5. But I did enjoy this episode, and I was very much looking forward to it. I'm very much still looking forward to this show going on. I think it has a very interesting premise and a very interesting idea, and I'll be very curious to see what direction they take it. My thoughts are these, though. I know we're in this day and age where we have podcasts like this and other podcasts and the internet and Reddit and all these places where people can go and talk about these shows. And one of the things that people like to do is they like to talk about their theories moving forward. like their theories, what their thoughts were going into it, what their thoughts are moving forward. I don't like to do that. I am not the type of person that likes to, oh, this is what I think is going to happen before the show, and now seeing this first episode, this is what I think is going to happen moving forward.
Sorry.
That's, if you like to do that, that's fine. It's just something that I don't like to do, because I think it leads to a lot of problems. One of the things, I think it ruins your enjoyment of the show, but I also think that, and this is where I teased and I said I'm going to bring Star Wars into this, is that when you develop a theory, you talk yourself into it so much that you start to think that your theory is the only theory that is valid, and what you think is going to happen is what should happen. And when that doesn't happen, I think people tend to react negatively. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you agree, I don't know if you would agree with that or not. But I think this happened with Star Wars, this new sequel trilogy, right? Which, Alex Kurtzman is the creator of this show, Picard, and Alex Kurtzman went to the J.J. Abrams School of Writing.
Yeah.
So the J.J. Abrams School of Writing has set up all these mysteries, and I think Alex Kurtzman just took that idea and ran with it here, is set up mysteries. And I almost think that's the way television is done these days, is everything has to be a big mystery and what happens moving forward. But getting back to this idea of The Force Awakens, totally set up a whole bunch of mysteries, right? Like, who is Rey? Who is Snoke? Like, is Rey, is she Luke Skywalker's son? Is she Obi-Wan's daughter? Daughter. Is she Luke's daughter? Is she Obi-Wan's daughter? Is she a secret daughter of Han and Leia? And for 2 years, people were like, who is Rey? Who is Rey? And they were coming up with all these theories and ideas and all over the internet. And then people had convinced themselves that their idea was the right idea. Mm-hmm. And when that didn't happen in The Last Jedi, people reacted very, very negatively, right? The Last Jedi, I don't think I've seen a Star Wars movie or a movie in recent memory that had such visceral reaction in a negative way as I've seen to The Last Jedi. And I'm not a big fan of that movie either, but I think a lot of that had to do with these theories that people had. And when they didn't turn out to be what actually happened, people said, oh, well, that movie is just wrong. That's not what should have happened, because that's not what I wanted to have happen. That's not what I convinced myself was going to happen. So I might have a few thoughts about where I think this show is going, but I'm not going to try and go down that rabbit hole of this is everything that I think is going to happen, and this is the grand theory of how I think this show is going to end, because for me that doesn't appeal to me, and I think that somehow ruins the enjoyment for me. And maybe you disagree with me, Chase. Maybe you listening out there in the podcast world disagree with me, and that's totally fine. But this is just my opinion.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that, Eric. And I listened to a bunch of different YouTubers and podcasters and stuff, and I think there is a propensity for that anger and that air quotes righteous indignation to happen if something doesn't pan out the way that you expected it to and desired it to. And that's not my intent in the least, and I don't think you're saying that about me either. So
no, I'm not saying that about you.
Yeah, I didn't think you were. And I think a theory is just good old fun, just some good fun to have, trying to see I wonder if I'm tracking with the writers and the storytellers and stuff like that. That's really all it is for me. But yeah, there are some YouTubers out there that I just can't listen to anymore because they just can't be happy. They just can't enjoy something. They have to rip something apart for their own enjoyment. And there's one that I used to listen to, and I'm not going to state their channel name or anything. I'm just not going to, out of respect. And they would, before anything would even premiere, they would just rip it apart, just hardcore rip it apart. And I'm thinking, how in the world can you say that this is going to happen when you haven't seen a second of it yet? And I've heard you say that you enjoyed this, and understand that you're not too crazy about theory crafting, because you don't want to create your own headcanon of how something is quote unquote supposed to happen. It's supposed to happen the way it happens, and that's what the storytellers want to say, and that's totally fine.
I also think to some extent, like, you're not the person telling this story.
Right.
This is not your story to tell. So just because something you want to have happen didn't happen doesn't mean it's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
The story happens the way the writers want it to happen, because it's their story to tell and not your story.
Mm-hmm. I will say this in one of my last few remarks before we wrap this up for this recap episode, is that I felt like this episode as a whole was a clean, crisp, cool breath of fresh air for Star Trek.
No, I would totally agree with that. I think I'm right there with you.
This, I realize, and we've even, you and I have disagreed even to a certain extent, like with how we rate it and stuff and how we've experienced this episode. But overall, this was a great episode, and it was very refreshing for me, and it sounds like it was for you as well, with some issues here and there, but not overwhelming, is kind of what I'm hearing you say and talk about, Eric.
No, the episode itself only gets like a 7.5, and that has nothing to do with the story, because I'm really invested in this story. My issues come from pacing and editing mostly. Okay. So that's something that I collectively put into my rating.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I think I've pretty much said all I need to say for this episode. How about you?
I just say, like, I just want to reiterate, I enjoyed this episode. I'm very much looking forward to it. There were a few things that had been said in interviews that had me a little worried coming out. Some things that Patrick Stewart had said, but so far none of those worries that I had have come forward. Okay. Like, I had a distinct big worry, and I know we kind of talked about this a little bit, like, before, and I think most of the people listening will know what I'm talking about with this interview that Patrick Stewart gave, and I'm glad to see that my worries have been put aside, at least for now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you everyone for listening to us today as we talk about our impressions, as we recap this first episode of Star Trek Picard, Season 1, Episode 1, Remembrance. Eric, as always, thank you for being a good sport and doing this with me. Yeah,
thanks for having me. I'm glad to talk about this show with you.
Absolutely. All right, well, guys, we have a regular episode coming out on Monday, January 27th. It's going to be called an Admiral Visit. I sit down and meet and chit-chat with someone that I have a lot of respect for as he talks about Star Trek himself. So make sure you check that out on Monday, January 27th. And hope you guys have enjoyed this. As always, remember you can get in contact with us through social media, through email, all that stuff. We're all at TRTV Pod. That's on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And if you found the page, you found the group, just hit go to group and join it. Conversation continues there. We have a great community that we're building. Remember, if you want to get in contact with us, you can open hailing frequencies and email us at trtvpod@gmail.com. You can also send a voice-only communication to 817-752-4757. Remember, there's a 3-minute time limit, and your comments may be used on an upcoming episode. And finally, if you want to send us anything like, gold press latinum, anything like that, that's great. Some Uda berries, doesn't matter, or a letter.
Slip, strips, or bars.
Anything.
Of latinum.
Yeah, any kind of latinum is fine. Or if you just want to write us a letter and just talk to us about Star Trek and your thoughts on it, you can do that too, entering in coordinates to the Lone Star Station, P.O. Box 2455, Azle, Texas. That's AZLE 76098. Anyways, guys, thank you for engaging with us today. And as always, may you boldly go and make it so.